Now, Moscow's elite Pushkin restaurant has expanded to New York. Prime Time's Tatiana Ryblova talked to founder Andrey Dellos about how Russian cuisine goes down in the Big Apple.
Why, out of all your projects, have you decided to bring Pushkin to New York?
It was logical. Since Pushkin opened in Moscow, people have been asking us if we were planning to open a similar restaurant in the US, Latin America, or Europe. Why did they ask? Well, first of all, Pushkin is an interesting project. More importantly, because serious Russian gourmet cuisine is not represented around the world. In Europe, it exists in the form of pretentious canteens claiming to be authentic. In America, there are establishments run by Russian immigrants who have long forgotten what Russian cuisine is all about. Americans have always liked Russian food. Unfortunately, they only know it in its most basic form, borscht and dumplings. The idea of introducing them to a mix of 19th century dishes in a very advanced, creative form seemed appealing to us.
New Yorkers are a very demanding public. What do you plan to offer them that they don't already have?
They are no more demanding than Russians. I once said that if we managed to surprise the Russian public, it'd be easier with everyone else. It is not about how over-demanding they are, but rather about their very specific tastes. We were 100% sure that our confectioner's shop at the entrance to the restaurant will be a success, because Americans have a sweet tooth. On our first day, the number of cakes we sold was the same as in Moscow. The only difference was that in Moscow, this had been happening for years, and everyone knows about it.
In your past interviews, you've described yourself as a rather harsh boss. What is the most important thing for you as a leader?
I'm a maniac, and I work only with maniacs. Other people don't survive in the restaurant business because mistakes here are very unpleasant. By losing one client, you automatically lose 40 because people talk. And the restaurant scene is the main topic of discussion at all kinds of meetings. And when a restaurant is condemned, it's horrific. When people tell me about a kind-hearted, soft and friendly restaurant owner, I don't believe them. A restaurant owner is a dragon. And as was said a long time ago, the personnel at a restaurant are an army.
We've talked about New York, but what about Moscow? Which restaurant formats look most promising here?
Moscow is a very warm city, but unlike beautiful but cold St. Petersburg, it's missing cute, light-hearted, tasty and expensive cafes. The reason for that is the lack of cheap premises in the city centre. History is to blame. In Paris, for example, the owners of such cafes live in the same 19th century buildings. And starting this tradition, which is exactly what makes Paris so cosy, is what we have to work on. But that's where the government should step in.
What should young entrepreneurs planning to enter Moscow's restaurant scene be prepared for?
For the worst. The fact is that today, the public catering system in Moscow has already been formed. In other words, every place under the sun is already taken. So if a first-time restaurateur has saved up the million or so he needs to open a restaurant, he still has to have a very interesting concept. He must be confident that it will work.
Do you design your restaurants yourself?
I do it, together with a colleague. It's very serious creative work. Many entrepreneurs make the same mistake. They invite a designer to work on the restaurant, but the designer's mission is to go down in history. He doesn't care very much about the functionality of the space. That's why so many restaurants in New York close. They're designed for aliens. I try to make them suited for people.
You come from a very artistic family. Your mother is a singer, your great-grandfather was a famous clothes designer. You studied to be an interpreter, worked as an artist, and have eventually become a successful entrepreneur. Which part of your background helped you the most?
My artistic background interferes a lot with doing business. I mean, with the pursuit for cash. I've always said that if it wasn't for our dabbling in art, our company would have been 5 to 6 times richer. But everything I've received from my parents and my higher education as well, I've used to the fullest. When you create a restaurant, you create a microcosm where all sides of human life are present. It's like a household. And all you know about life, you apply here. I'm a happy person in this respect. I know how to talk to cooks, managers and workers in their own language. And that's very important.
Thank you very much for this interview.